Welcome, guys. Okay, and hi, Facebook people. It's great to be back here again. And today we have Robin. So maybe Robin, you could really tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I do digital marketing, right? But I specialize in SEO, and right now I've got I do numerous jobs, but my main focus is doing B2B tech marketing. So a lot of my clients are from all over the world. Majority of them are in the US, and basically what we do is we get them big clients, usually enterprise size clients, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
That's nice. So today we're going to be talking a lot about SEO. So we actually put up a poll and we asked people, hey, what are you guys interested about? Interested to know about, is it SEO, branding, content, and whatnot? And this time around, people has requested for SEO, right? So really quickly, so what is SEO?
Well, I'm sure as most of you might know, it stands for search engine optimization. Now, what does that mean? So when we're doing searches, we use platforms, whether it's Google search, Yahoo search, Bing search, right? And each of these search engines, they operate a certain way, right? So understanding how these search engines operate, usually there is what I like to call an agent, right? Mm-hmm. So this agent could be basically a Google bot, right? Yeah. Or Google crawler, as I call it. And that basically is the bridge, right, between what you put out there mm-hmm. and how the search engines understand that, right? So the more you understand that, the more you kind of get the gist of what makes it work, what makes it tick, right? Then you're a little bit better in understanding what basically how to optimize your website, or whatever it is that you're trying to optimize on the internet.
Yeah. So I guess also just to make it simpler would be that, when people say, oh, SEO, they always say, I want to rank on the first page of Google, I want to rank on the first page of, Bing or something like this. So if let's just say, they always say that, hey, if your website is SEO optimized and you're giving value through your content, then you have a better chance of ranking higher. And always remember that for SEO, just like what Robin said, right? For SEO, for search engine these days, they're getting smarter and smarter. And one of the key things is that they always want to give value to the people who are serving the net.
Absolutely.
So if your content is not giving value, then they won't show it to the person. But if your content is giving value, yes, they will show it to people as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so are you ready for the burning questions?
Yeah. Let's go for it.
All right. So so the first question is by Anosh Vinny, and she asks, what are the good goals to set for SEO?
It's a good question, but it's also a very subjective question, right? So it does come down to what are you trying to sell, if you're trying to sell anything at all, right? You could also be just writing a blog. So it's a very, very subjective question. But some of the more general goals you could set when you're doing SEO, for example, obviously the very first obvious one is getting rank at least in top 5 pages, right? And besides that, it's also, when you're doing SEO, you want to generate traffic to your website or your blog. And for that, you'll probably want to set a certain amount. Say you want 100 people in a week, basically, right, to generate traffic. So these are some of your more subjective goals. But yeah, it really does depend. Let's give a good example. Yeah. Someone who's selling clothes, mm-hmm. right? So what would be a good goal for that then when you're doing SEO, right? So let's say, okay, you want to set a monthly traffic. The goal is basically you want 1,000 people, right, to go into your website with at least maybe a 20-25% conversion through SEO alone, right? So organic, nothing paid, just people arriving in your website. So 25% of 1,000 people, that's 250 people checking out every month. So that would be then a goal if you're selling clothes online, for example. So it depends. It really depends.
Yeah. So and I think at some point you also need to give yourself some time before those things start coming in, right?
Of course.
Because it doesn't happen straight away.
Yeah.
It also depends on, I guess, the frequency of your website being crawled as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So definitely like what Robin said, setting a goal. A lot of these are very subjective, and also some people I do know that some people actually come up with a list of words and their goal is, hey, you know what, when they generate a list of words, their goal is to be able to say, this month we need to at least write content for this this 20 words, and by a certain amount of time we want to see it being ranked.
Yeah.
So some of the people gets a little bit crazy. So I guess one is content creation goals, and also like what you say, right? Is it at the top 5 pages and certain amount of traffic? Okay, one key thing: what tools do you use to actually keep track of all these goals? Because people can't just be Googling themselves every day. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. There are different ways, different platforms you could use. The one, of course, the main platform you use, that's if you're in Google, right, is analytics, right? So that's going to show you basically what the traffic is like, where they're coming from, and really understanding what sort of the nature of your traffic is. Right. So that's very important to kind of plan out your next steps. Besides Google Analytics, the one, at least my personal favorite tool is SEMRush.
Okay.
It's very, very in-depth. It shows pretty much everything in terms of also what possible keywords you could use. However, though, SEMRush is a paid tool,
Yes.
right? It's not that cheap either, but thankfully the agency I work at pays for that. But otherwise, there's always, free tools you could use, like Uber Suggests,
Yes,
right? So Neil Patel has a couple of tools there. There's even, Neil Patel also has an SEO analyzer.
Yeah, I think so.
So you could do that too. The other trick too, which surprisingly not a lot of people know, is when you're inspecting element, right, on your website. I'm surprised not a lot of people know this, that you can actually, there's an option provided by Google themselves to do a bit of an SEO audit, right? So not SEO audit basically makes you understand, what certain improvements you can make and this and that, whether it's speed load,
Yes.
things of that nature, right? So really, really depends. But yeah, keyword research though, you can literally just go into Google and type in keyword research tool, and you're just going to get list and list. Moz as well. That's a pretty good tool.
There's so many things.
There are hundreds and hundreds of tools out there, but I guess it's more about finding the tool that works for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so let's just move on to the next question, right? So the next one is, how long does it take to see results from SEO?
Okay, so assuming you've done all the SEO best practices, right? It could take, honestly, anywhere between 2 days. Like, I know some of you might get surprised by this, right? 2 days, I can vouch for that myself, right? To a maximum of 3 months, right? Now, 2 days, some of you guys might be thinking like, but hey, I've been using this keyword, I still haven't been ranked, I'm still on the 100th page and whatnot. Now, it's the trick is how you use those keywords, right? Here's one very basic example, all right? So let's say I'm searching for a digital marketing school, right? Like Next Academy. So I will type in then, a common person will type in digital marketing course, all right? You're gonna get tons and tons and tons of results. And let's say as the Next Academy, right? If you want to rank on the first page, that's going to be tricky. But as a way to kind of also qualify leads is that if a lead were to type in digital marketing school in KL 2019, there we go, right? So you basically kind of made it a bit more niche, right? And and user intent, right, is clear, right? Then, if you have those keywords somewhere, used well in your header tags, then the chances of then seeing the Next Academy website would probably be on the first page. So it depends. So if you use niche keywords or long tail phrases, right, it could take maybe 2-3 days, right, to rank for those keywords. But if you're using general keywords like digital marketing school, for example, then it could take up to 3 months because there's so much I would say results, right, on digital marketing schools. So
there's a lot of competition out there.
Oh yeah.
So I think really just to sum that up would be the type of keywords, right? The longer, the more intent keywords, the better.
Yeah. Clear, establishing clear user intent.
Yeah. And the second one would be, where do you put your keywords within your content as well, right? So
Absolutely.
I think some of the key things we are like, you should always put it at your headings, probably your URLs as well. So some of those are best practice.
Yes.
Maybe we should talk about. Maybe you could also share with us, what are some of the things that when it comes to SEO, what are some of those so-called best practice or some of the things that people should look out for?
Okay, usually as a start, first, you want to do a little bit of research. You want to better understand. It's not like, okay, let's say I run a little different example right now, right? So I have a stationery shop. Right, and I sell pens and pencils. Now, if you're going to type in pens and pencils into Google, you're going to find all kinds of results. So it's really understanding first what kind of keywords your nature of business, right, would use, right? So let's say in the case of Next Academy, the type of keywords it would use would be coding course, right, digital marketing course, and so forth. So you do research and you see what kind of traffic those keywords generate. And if the traffic is healthy, right, you basically start playing with those keywords. So there's a bit of English trickery involved in this, right? And it's I like to use a separate tool for that as well called the LSI. Right, lsigraph.com. Some might have heard of it. So that basically kind of stretches that out. So let's say the keyword you want to rank for is digital marketing school, but you have all kinds of different results. You kind of want to separate yourselves from that, right?
Yeah.
And go, you want to basically establish clear user intent. So you do that research, you find out what those keywords are, and then you basically start adding other relevant keywords to your main keyword, right? If I'm searching for a software developer, right, a typical Google user would just type in software developer, but now that by typing that in, your results will not be clear.
Exactly.
That's why these days, what people do, it's called long tail phrases, right? What people do, they'll say, looking for a software developer in Ampang, Selangor, 2019 with Laravel skills.
Yeah.
Right. So very niche, very precise, and it's still in relations to what you're actually searching for. So research on traffic, right? And then you have your main keywords, software development, whatever it is, right? And then you come up with maybe 10, 20, 30, doesn't matter how many, and basically kind of put words around that, but make sure that they obviously make sense.
Okay, so we have a question from Daily Muscle. Say hello to Daily Muscle.
Hi, Daily Muscle.
Hi, Daily Muscle. He asked, are there plugins that can automate this for us? Are there plugins that can automate SEO for people in general? Yes,
absolutely. But now this will first depend on how you have constructed your website. So if you're using, for example, let's say you're building a website from scratch, right? Then plugins are, probably not going to really help out there, right? But if you're using, say, WordPress, I would say that's probably the next best option, right? So for WordPress, you got SEO plugins from Yoast, for example, and they do a really fantastic job. Half of the websites I deal with are WordPress websites, and we use Yoast plugins for all of them, and at least for all of our clients, we're ranked on the first page, all with WordPress websites. So it really depends. Wix would be my least favorite to right? Don't mind me being blunt about this, but there are a couple of platforms out there. You have to really do some in-depth research to see which ones are SEO friendly and which aren't. But so far as I can say is that yes, there are plugins, but depends on the platform you choose.
So just to so if you're Daily Muscle, if you're using WordPress, you can use this plugin called Yoast.
Yes.
Right, so it's YOAST.
Yes.
What it does is actually, there is like certain best practice over there, and they try to get you to follow those best practices.
Yes.
I do know that sometimes some people can, go really crazy. Like, I need everything to be green in color because they actually have like this traffic light. I need everything to be green in color. You can try and attempt to do that. I guess you don't really need to do that.
It's not that important.
Yes, it's not that important.
Yeah.
But following their guidelines would kind of be good enough, I think.
Yes.
But other than plugins, we just now Robin has already mentioned a lot of tools like SEMRush, Moz. Keyword research would be things like free ones would be Uber Suggest, SEMRush. And if you really want to track, if people are doing backlinks to you, you can use Backlinko, or I think Uber Suggest has that as well.
Yes, they do.
I'm not so sure about SEMRush.
Yes.
Yeah, they do as well. The paid version, right?
Yes, of course.
And there are also tools that help you kind of track your ranking based on keywords. I don't know if SEMRush have that for the paid version. Do they have that?
SEMRush.
Yeah.
Okay, so SEMRush pretty much has everything from A to Z.
Yeah.
For me, it's a dream tool.
It's a dream tool.
I do everything on it.
So long you pay, it's a dream tool.
Yeah, pretty much.
if you don't pay, you need to probably just go Google for all these things,
pretty
right?
much.
Yeah. So I think I hope that answered your question. So WordPress, Yoast. If not, you probably just need to go look for those separate tools out there. Okay, let's go on to the next question. So Renee Ng asks, how to do SEO keywords research?
Actually, there's many ways of going about this.
Yeah.
To be honest, one of the easiest ways, right? Just go on to Uber Suggest, or even Google Trends for that matter. So it really depends. The cool thing about Uber Suggest is that, let's say if your company is Malaysia and your customers are purely Malaysian based, there's an option in Uber Suggest where you can just do that research within Malaysia itself, right? So that's a pretty cool thing. So I think Uber Suggest is a good place to start, right?
A good place to start.
You can back it up with some Google Trends. Now, Google Trends is good, but it does not sometimes, right? Sometimes it does not provide enough data, especially when you're looking for more niche type of keywords. So go to Uber Suggest, but most importantly that when you're on these platforms, right, and you're typing in a keyword, of course you have to first come up with a keyword yourself. So this comes from you, right? So you put in that first keyword and then just try to basically get acquainted with some of these tools and really understanding. So let's say if you find you put in a keyword there and you'll have some other recommendations from Uber Suggest, and then and then next to it, if I'm not mistaken, you'll see the monthly traffic and so forth. So really understanding what all these data points mean, right? Once you get to that, then you can start moving on to more complicated tools like SEMRush.
Yeah. So for Uber Suggest, if you have your laptops or computer with you, you can just Google UBER SUGGEST. So Uber Suggest. We also kind of mentioned when it comes to keyword research, when it comes to keyword research, you would also want to think about intent, right? I think we mentioned that.
Yeah, user intent.
Yeah, user intent. So let's just recap that again. User intent methods, because people, if I'm looking for something, if I want to buy, let's just say a phone, right? I'm not just going to type iPhone. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm probably going to write iPhone, latest iPhone price, or iPhone X, let's just say iPhone X versus Huawei something, right? I'm definitely going to type things that for me to make decisions. And this is some of those things that you need to keep in mind when you're actually doing your SEO keyword research. What words actually trigger people to look for something, and those are some of the key ways you could think about. And just like what Robin said, Uber Suggest, when you put in those keywords, Uber Suggest will suggest a lot more keywords for you, and you can actually be inspired over there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, the next question. We have a bit of a technical thing. So what's happening over there? Okay. So for the next question would be, how is SEO related to content writing for websites?
It's almost, I would say, quite central to SEO, right? You can have the most beautiful, structured website, but if you don't have content, you basically won't rank for anything, right? It's basically having a Ferrari without an engine, right? So content is very, very central. I would say basically in my day-to-day job, my colleague was a content marketing manager. So we both actually work very closely. And how we work closely is that, I would basically identify some of the keywords, the niche keywords, long tail phrases, whichever it is, and that she will turn it into valuable content. By valuable content, it's not to say that, you just want to say whatever you feel like saying, right? You have to understand what the trends are. As Audrey mentioned earlier, is that, for example, when you're looking to buy a phone, right? A lot of people might do phone comparisons, right? So if let's say you're content writing and you're only writing about iPhone 10 and nothing else, and if I'm going to search on Google for iPhone 10 versus Huawei P30, is that article going to show? No, because you did not mention. There was no mention about the Huawei phone to begin with. So when you're doing content, but now content, a lot of people in their minds would think it's just articles, pillar pages, blog posts. But you'll see, especially this year in 2019, right? There's what I've noticed, at least running some experiments and observing some other really, really good marketers out there, is that there's a bit of a shift that's happening. So articles, yes, they're very central, but there's also now a lot of videos, right? So video marketing is also important. YouTube. You'd be very surprised. Do you think videos, okay, but how does a Google crawler understand what a video is? When you upload a video, if you have, right, just try this out, okay? Go to YouTube, upload a video, and you'll notice straight away when you're uploading is that you're gonna have your descriptions, right? They're gonna even ask you to add meta tags, all right? So YouTube makes it very obvious, right, with the use of keywords for your videos, right? This is basically in order for Google to understand what your video is, coming back to user intent. So content is, I would say, at the core of SEO, right? No content. Right now, in fact, what we're doing right now, right, is content marketing for Next Academy. Right? This is one right now. You guys are literally witnessing content marketing and making. So this is one really good example, right, of going live as we do right now.
Yeah, I think just now you brought up something. So let's just touch a little bit of on YouTube and YouTube SEO. Okay, so I think just like what Robin said. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. So this is something that you guys need to keep in mind, right? People actually do search for a lot of things in YouTube. How to XXX, how to do this, how to do that. And you notice, when you type something into your Google search, it's very likely you will see a YouTube video over there. Right, on the first page of Google. So these are some of the things you need to keep in mind. And yes, YouTube SEO actually really do matters, especially these days. It's just becoming more and more important. So like what you say, those description, they will ask you to put in those the words, the description, and sometimes they ask you to put in tags as well. And not just that, when you upload your videos, they actually help you auto transcribe.
Yeah,
and that's how they also try to figure out, what is the content of the video. So these are some of the things that they are doing, which you should definitely keep in mind.
Yeah, it's a huge part. Like you'll notice if you're just doing an organic search on Google, right, that 8 or 9 out of 10 times you're going to see YouTube videos in your first page, right? So it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, so definitely, don't, just because when it comes to SEO, you don't just need to look at blogs, written SEO, but you want to take a look at YouTube, right? Because Google bought over YouTube, so it's just no-brainer.
Exactly, yeah. And of course, being Google, they will be naturally biased, right, to their own platforms. So just keep that in mind, right? So you can use basically some of these things to your advantage. Even Google Partner, Google News, even, right? You can even put up stuff on Google News. So there's various ways. Well, they're all white hat tactics, right? It doesn't involve cheating. It doesn't involve cheating, but there's so many ways of doing this. And a lot of it is cross-platform, all right? So whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, right, social media, it really doesn't matter. Just pick your 20 most suitable platforms. Make sure they all have a domain authority of maybe 80 and above, right? And just put your content, just distribute your content throughout all these different platforms, and that's going to add huge SEO value.
Really just talking about domain authority right now. So what is domain authority? You guys could use tools, just Google domain authority, and I think Moz would actually.
Moz is one of the more better ones for that.
So what's domain authority? Basically, the higher the domain authority is, it means that this domain is very trustworthy, it's really credible. So if you are associating yourself with higher domain authority sites, what will happen is that Google will look at it and say, oh, okay, right, birds of the same feather flock together, right? So
pretty much.
Yeah, if this person is associated with a site that is credible, this person should be credible as well. So just keep in mind, and if you actually see websites with very, very low domain authority linking to you, you have to be careful.
Yeah. Make sure you keep a lookout on that regularly, because if, let's say, as Audrey said, that your links are coming from websites with very, very low domain authority, you basically won't rank for the most part.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
All right. Okay. So I think one question is, I mean, in the SEO world, right, there are a lot of what we call the white hat tactics, means, the ethical right away tactic.
Above the water.
And there are a lot of people who are always suggesting black hat tactics. The black hat tactics means that it's really unethical, or it's just wrong, right?
Yeah.
You may get penalized by Google, not today, but maybe just one day when Google does decide to do a algorithm upgrade or something like this. So maybe you could share with us some of those black hat tactics that people should avoid.
Well, the one I've seen the most, right, is basically just backlinking all over the place. They go everywhere and just backlink.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if it's low domain authority, high domain authority, or just backlinking all over the place. Now, let's say if you're doing let's say Next Academy, right? Yeah. Somehow there's a backlink on a, I don't know, a very dingy website somewhere, right? That has nothing to do with what Next Academy is doing. Right? You could possibly get away with it, right? You could get away with it, but I'm going to tell you right now that it's going to be short-lived.
Yes.
Every year, Google's been massively intelligent in how they go about upgrading and modifying their signals, right? There's over 500 signals, okay? So they're constantly adding to that, they're constantly changing that. So every time this a signal change happens, right, and they notice what is an educational institution doing on a random website that's got nothing to do with it, right? Yeah. So when Google finds this out, it basically sends our Google Crawler friends will go there, we'll find out wait, this doesn't make sense. Goes back and says nah, this is just a bad business, and then from there worst case scenario, you could be even penalized, and being penalized, it's really, really difficult to get out of it after that.
Yeah, so I think last time a lot of people, so here are some of those examples, right? For example, people do a lot of keyword stuffing.
Oh, keyword abuse,
yeah,
right?
Keyword abuse, just ferreting in.
Don't do that, right? Google already has a signal for that. Yeah. It's already been for a couple of years, but still, I'm very surprised, right, that there are a lot of SEO specialists, right? All right. If you happen to be one of them watching right now, I'm going to tell you right now, okay, that it does not work. All right. So let's say the keyword you want to rank for, let's say iPhone 10, and in one single blog post you mentioned iPhone 10 a million times. It's not going to do it. Google is going to know that, and they're going to be penalized for that. So yeah.
Yeah. So don't stuff keywords, just because you want it. I know that last time in those days,
you could get away with it.
You could get away with it. People will stuff keywords and they will hide the keywords behind the scenes. So human eyes, when you're reading the article, you can't see those keywords. But then when Google crawls them, they will actually see the keywords behind the scenes, right? And there was an algorithm update, and when that happened, these websites just got penalized, and they don't see the sun anymore after that.
No, they're pretty much on the 1,000th page. Yeah. So be wary of that.
Yes.
Consider. Definitely white hat tactics are the way forward. Also, it makes the world a better place.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
when regular people are doing organic searches, we want to have good results that actually add value, right? So every time someone does this, and you see something just weird results that are not meant to be there, it will be short-lived. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's another one. We call it the content spinning. So some people really like to spin content, meaning they kind of copy and paste and then plagiarize and put it through this, software or whatnot to spin the content and make it look as though it's new.
Yeah.
So last time, just to give an example or just a story, last time I actually decided to give this service a try, right? Apparently they write stuff. So I decided, okay, I need a few articles. I don't have time to write them, so I'm just going to let these people do it. And I let them do it, right? And it was this article thinking when I was reading it, I'm like, oh, everything sounds pretty okay. I don't know when. I think after a while, I decided to just go to my Google Search Console to check it out, and they actually flagged that particular blog post. I can't remember how is it like, but they flagged it, and immediately I know it's because these people probably what they did was that when they're writing it, they actually go to different sources, plagiarize those content and then spin those content to make it look new. And I got plagiarized, and I got penalized. So really be careful when that happens.
Yes.
All right. So we kind of covered some of that hack tactics. Next, how do you get backlinks?
How do you get backlinks?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So this is actually one of the more, I would say, easier things to do, right? So when you're doing backlinks, of course, using white hat tactics, we're only going to be talking about white hat tactics here. Okay?
Yeah.
So when you're doing backlinks, of course, you're going to first find what type of platforms, that you see yourself, having perhaps a blog article on. And whatnot, or sometimes it could just be a Quora answer, right? Sometimes it could be a Reddit comment. Sometimes it could just be an article on medium.com. So it really depends, but it's more about finding what platforms kind of match your nature of business. So let's say if you're doing something technical and there's a thread on Reddit, right? Yeah. Reddit now has a domain authority of, I think, 98 or 99,
that's
right?
High.
It's really high. So let's say if you're doing something tech related and there's a thread on Reddit that talks about tech related stuff, and that you see someone who's got a question or maybe is talking about something that's similar, right? Similar in nature to what you are offering, right? And that you feel that, okay, this content that I have can actually provide value to these group of people who are following a specific thread on Reddit, that you go in there, it's like, hey guys, by the way, I think I might have an article that could help, with addressing this issue. Do check it out, and then you backlink that, right? So if it's again, intent, right? We're talking about intent, right? So even if you're doing backlinking, intent has to be clear still. So that's one way of going about it. So people click on that link, go like, oh yeah, okay, right? If you're doing it right, then people click on that link and go like, yeah, okay, hey, you know what? I have actually learned a couple of things reading this blog. And then you get comments after you've done backlinking that will say like, yeah, hey, this link is good and whatnot. Now that would be one good way. There are other ways as well. Medium.com, a lot of people do this, right? Yeah. They go on medium.com, they post an article, they still embed their words, right? It's not even a clear URL link. They embed the link onto a word, right? So there are many ways of doing this, but again, it's finding the right platforms. It can be on social media too, right? And by social media, I mean all the platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, you could say, that you're doing your backlinks there too. But again, as long as it's related.
Aside from that, sometimes you can get people to actually mention you in their own blog articles. So that's one way to get backlinks as well. So for example, like Daily Muscle, right? So Daily Muscle is all about working out. And let's just say there is a website that talks about working out, that talks about gymming and so on and so forth. Daily Muscle could pretty much reach out to those people and say, hey, this is what we offer, and if you think that whatever we have here is a good solution, you could mention us as well. So in those situations, then you get this let's just say this website that focuses on exercise, and they decided to backlink Daily Muscle. So that's also another way to go about this. So you need to go and search for this.
Yeah. Actually, that's very important that Audrey brought that up. So there are multiple ways of doing it, right? So if you're doing it yourself, right, then some of the things that I've said, right, would come into practice. But if you want to go on a platform where you cannot do it yourself, right, then you maybe need a friend. Really depends. Some platforms are open source, some platforms are closed source. So how you want to go about it would really depend. Some cases you might even have to ask permission from the website owners, right?
Exactly.
So it really depends. Yeah.
All right. So the next question: how to apply SEO on Google Ads?
Interesting question. Now, there is a similarity,
Yeah.
right, when you're doing Google Ads and SEO, primarily in the keyword department, right? Now, when I do an SEO campaign and I start to do my keywords, my keyword research and whatnot, I pair it right together with a Google Ads campaign as well. So what I'll do is I'll use the niche keywords, as I mentioned earlier in the video, long tail phrases for SEO, right? And then I'll take the precise keywords, right, for Google Ads. Now, the nice thing about Google Ads is pretty much you're paying to cut the queue, right? You're paying to jump the queue, right? So it's a ranking. Let's say for the keyword iPhone 10, you're ranked on the 10th page. Now, of course, if you have a Google Ads campaign and you want to rank for iPhone 10, you're going to see basically it's the very first thing you see, right? So there are similarities there. So when you're doing your keyword research, right, you have your, like I mentioned, long tail niche keywords, that belongs to your SEO. And then you have your primary main keywords, which you then use in your Google Ads campaign. Now, Google Ads campaign, they allow you to do a little bit more in terms of targeting. You can do geo-targeting, targeting by interests, things. Basically, it's just more precise. Now, you have to be careful because I have run certain Google Ad campaigns which have gone into the tens of thousands of US dollars. And how this happens, because it's pretty much a pay-per-click type of thing where every time someone clicks on it, you're being charged for it. Right? So you got to be a bit careful when it comes to Google Ads.
So basically, just think about it this way, right? With Google Ads, you need to pay, right? You cut the queue, you need to pay. But then after you pay, you decide to stop, okay, that's it, right? You probably won't appear again at the top. But when it comes to SEO, if you actually invest your time and effort into building SEO, and you, let's say, it's whatever you did, it's amazing, it's great. When you start climbing up the first page of Google, you pretty much could stay there, right? It's sustainable. It's kind of like a sustainable sort of traffic, right?
It is.
So it could even last you for, this one article, let's say that's really good. It could even last you for 2, 3, 4 years, and it will just bring in the customers, the leads, non-stop. But we pay the moment you opt it, bye-bye.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think honestly, the more important question here is that when and when do you use Google Ads?
Yes.
Right. What is the justification for using Google Ads? Now, if you're a B2B company, right, then it would make good sense, right, to do a little bit of pull marketing. Yes. Like when you're doing ads, for example, on social media, it's very different. It's push marketing, right? Mm-hmm. You're basically putting your brand out there. You're forcing it in front of people's faces, right? And those annoying 15-second, ads in between videos, right? That's pushy, right? But for Google Ads to work, you'll first have to, as a lead, right, as a potential lead, I would have to first type in the words into the Google search bar, right? Only then, because basically it's like you're one step ahead, right, when you want to qualify your leads, because you're making the lead work for you by inserting the keywords. So when they insert the keywords, then you have your Google Ads. But again, it only works mostly for B2B companies. If you're B2C, right, I'll be very careful because it's common that B2C companies deal in larger volumes as compared to B2B companies, right? So if, let's say, you're an events company, right? I know this for a fact. That's why I don't suggest Google Ads for my events company, is that if you're going to put like, hey, you know what, there's a marathon that's happening here, right? And then you want to put a Google ad for your marathon. Imagine for every person, right? And how many people run a marathon on average? 5,000, 10,000 people, right? Right, and let's say you're bidding for the word marathon, and it's like, let's say $5 per bid, right? Times that by 10,000, that's $50,000, right? It makes no sense, right? So you have to think about how and why you want to use it before you actually use it.
Yeah. All right. The next question is from Abdul Kakim. So I think it's okay. I believe it's a he. Okay. So Abdul Kakim asked, how to use SEO for social media?
Very good question. So this is a relatively untouched area, I would say, right? A lot of digital marketers are like, what? Social media is social media. SEO is SEO. You're wrong. They actually are very much correlated. And this comes back to domain authority, right? So when we talk about social media, there's Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram, right? LinkedIn, right? YouTube, and
That's Pinterest.
Pinterest, right? So you'd be very surprised that Google, right, actually scrapes these websites first, right? If you go home right, or let's say if you are home, or if you're on your phone or your computer right now, you typed in something as general as, let's say, phone repair in KL or anything like that, right? The chances of you finding a Facebook URL, right, on the first page is pretty much 90% and above. Again, it comes back down to domain authority. It's because that Google treats social media websites just like any other websites, right? Don't get me wrong. So there's no favoritism that's going on here. It's just that when you talk about platforms like Facebook, where there's hundreds of millions, I don't know, maybe billions, right, of people on Facebook, and when you talk, it's a very congested highway. It's like a lot of traffic, right? So Google logically would want to go there and find out, like, okay, well, since there's a lot of people on this platform, there's probably a lot of value, right? So you'll find that many times that you're going to find one of these social media platforms, right? But okay, I guess the more important question is like, okay, well, that's good to hear, Robin, but how do I use it? Keywords. Simple as that. Even if it's as a form, as a pinned post, right, on Facebook. So when you're doing a very long pinned post, don't think that the Google crawler is not basically scraping through those keywords. They are, right? So you want to use your keywords in your posts, basically, as bizarre as that may sound. Now, hashtags play an important part too, but you can always use a little bit of both. It's a bit of a mix and match, right? With Instagram, it's primarily hashtags, not so much just individual keywords. But Facebook, just keywords alone. Like if you're just posting up stuff as a business page, right? That you put the keywords into your comment, into your posts, that there's a good chance that you might be ranked for that.
Nice. He actually also asked the next question: How to utilize hashtags for social media?
Well, very similar. Now, the thing with hashtags is that we can never know what's trending, right? Which makes sense, right? Whether it's Facebook, well, Instagram, I would say, is probably the platform that uses hashtags the most. Facebook too, but not as much as Instagram, right? Instagram, sometimes we'll see like 50 different hashtags in one single post. Primarily because on Instagram you can follow hashtags, like specific hashtags. Now, as far as that goes, is let's say, well, again, depending on the nature of your business or whatever it is that you're trying to sell, that if you look at the trending hash, there's no way to know which hashtags are trending.
It's really trending.
You're right. Instagram's not going to let you know. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of having a hashtag. So one of the things you can do is like, okay, you come up with maybe a bunch of hashtags, right? And you search them, you put them into Instagram, and then you find out, okay, there are this many 2.7 million people following this hashtag, or there's 500,000 people following this hashtag, and so forth and so forth. So that's the only way when it comes to at least using hashtags, which you can basically find out simply by inputting the hashtags into your search into Instagram, for example.
I think there's this tool called keywordtool.io. If I'm not mistaken, you can actually search for some of the hashtags there as well. So they will give you, I think I used it once, but I remember well that you can actually go and do some hashtags research over there. But just like what Robin said, it's a little bit tough for you to say if it's trending or not, because people you have, let's just say, do you count it by how many posts uses the hashtag, right? Just because there is 1 million or 2 million people using this post doesn't exactly mean that it is valuable to you. So maybe one key way is sometimes just for every post you can actually like kind of like playing the game where you put like certain amount of keywords, maybe say 10 hashtags, and every post you kind of just change the hashtags a little bit. If you use the business tool, if I'm not mistaken, there is this part where it says that how are you being discovered. So if you're being discovered by hashtags, then from there you can kind of like make a conclusion saying like, okay, so in this post, I'm being discovered by this like some hashtags, but I don't know which, right? You can't really tell which.
Yeah. I mean, there's an obvious reason why, let's say Instagram will not tell you, hey, by the way, these are our top 10 most trending hashtags. Can you imagine the chaos, right? Can you imagine the chaos? If Instagram went and openly said, hey guys, here are 10 top hashtags, do what you want with it, right? And then you'll find that all the wannabe popular people, right? They're just going to abuse, right, the hashtag. And basically what's going to happen is that the hashtags will lose its value, right? Yeah. So there's a reason to keeping certain things private in that sense.
So right now we have one more question by Kino Papi. The question is, how do you optimize your website with HTML?
Tags. So there are several tags, right? We're talking about usually header tags, right, which range from H1 all the way up to H6. Yeah. Title tags. Most importantly, though, right, when using HTML is understanding how many characters you should be using, right, for your header tags. Now, each header tag has a different character limit, right? This is as suggested, okay, as suggested by Google. And the reason why is all for our friendly Google crawler friends, right? So when you use these tags, right, in an SEO friendly way, you're going to find that, okay, Google crawler really enjoys almost. It's like basically you're providing a walk in the park, right, for the Google crawler, right? If a Google crawler was like a dog, right? What you're doing is that using HTML and using your header tags and your title tags according to best practices, right, is you're leaving basically treats, right, along the way. So when the dog comes in, stuff like, oh, okay, ooh, treat, right? And it's very, very clear. So that's how I see header tags basically. Now, the other part, besides header tags, actually more importantly than header tags, right, is structured data, right? If your data isn't structured, and let's say your H1 tag is all the way below the script, and then your H6 tag or your title tag is somewhere in the middle, and right, that makes basically what you're doing is you're giving the Google crawler a tough time to understand your website, right? So to understand what structured data means, there's a lot of what I use is schema.org, right, to understand how to better structure my data, right, for my websites. And once you have your structured data, right, structured code basically, right, then you can start basically finding out where you want to put which tags and whatnot, and how many characters and things like that.
Okay, so for people who don't really understand what HTML is, so basically, for us humans, when we go to a website and we get to see what's happening on the site, we get to read it out straight. But like for these Google crawlers, they cannot actually see the same way we see things. So they actually see the content via HTML. So the way we say what HTML is, it's a way, it's basically the structure and the content, right? And if you actually, you guys can just go Google what is HTML and how does HTML look like. But basically, for every content pieces there is inside, there is something called tags, TAG, right? And these tags have meanings behind it. For example, the P tag. P tag means paragraph. So it's like telling the Google crawler like, oh, this P, it means it's a paragraph, and here's the content within this paragraph. So the H1 tag, for example, means header 1, the most important header, right? And obviously the title tag, right, means, oh, this is the title for this website. The meta description, right, this is the description of this website. So these are some of the key things you guys have to, pay attention to. Very often, if you are already using things like WordPress and everything, so all these things, they made it really easy for you. You don't really need to know, what is this tags, and you can just type it in. But if you're building your website from scratch, you need to pay attention to title tags and meta description, because that's what shows when people Google, when people Google stuff, you see that, that blue title, and then you see some description. So that's the title tag.
Yes.
The description is the meta description tag. And then if you go to the website, very often there will be like one big, heading, and that's what we call the H1 tag. H1 means the most important tag, right? And then the most important one should always appear first, then only the H2, the H3s, and H4s. So just like what Robin said, the structure really matters.
Yeah. So you have your header tags. I think Audrey explained that really well. But yeah, how you use that really is just as important. You might have your main keywords, for example, in your H1 tag, right? And then you might have your secondary keywords in your H2 tag, right? And so forth. So how you use your header tags is just as important. So that's also something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I think one key thing, maybe let's just ask, someone always asks, like, if I don't know any SEO, does it mean that I can't rank at all? If I don't do any SEO, I don't know about any of these things, right? If I just want to write, does that mean that I can't rank at all?
No, that's not true. The bottom line is value, right? Yes. Value. So there are actually a lot of cases you find really bad, horrible websites, okay, who have done zero SEO. And matter of fact, I mean, honestly, all they did was just kind of, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go use a random website builder, but, and just start putting content. Now, if your content is so great, right, it provides so much value to hundreds of thousands or if not millions of people, you're still going to get ranked. What is the signal for that, right? That's the traffic signal, basically. Yeah. So even if you have a bad website, you don't use structured data, you don't even use keywords, right, for that matter, that if you're putting content out there and it generates traffic back into your website, you've actually succeeded in doing zero SEO. So it's a bit of a gray line there. It's like SEO, but not SEO. But
yeah, it's more like they don't, put those keywords in mind. They don't purposely think of it, but they just create. Yeah,
they're just creating content, whether it's video, whether it's articles, ebook, whatever. Bunch of stuff that adds tremendous value to their audience. And if it generates traffic, then boom, up the ladder you go, up all the way to first page.
I mean, for me, I've seen different people does different things. One key thing is this: when people are passionate about what they're doing, they would kind of know what their audience are looking for. This is something I realized. I remember, this guy who was doing something about guitars, right? Fixing guitars or repairing guitars and tuning them. And the kind of keywords that he has, or the kind of titles that he had, like I was like saying, okay, what content would you come up with? Like when I was just looking at it, he's not even thinking about keyword research, but he's like just telling me like, oh yeah, this is things that people would want to know. These are things I will write about. He actually come up with a list of stuff. When I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's great, right? He without thinking about this whole SEO or without thinking about this whole keyword thing, he already know what his audience need, and he's actually catering to that.
Very, very important point. Like you have to be clear, all right? So value through intent. Right. So if you know who your audience are very precisely, as Audrey mentioned, let's say, a guitar player. So we obviously know that his audience are guitar players or perhaps people who are learning how to play the guitar and whatnot. And he's producing content solely and exclusively for these people, right? Up the ladder you go.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. But before we end, is there any question at all? Oh wait, there's one more question. I'm sorry guys, there's one more question. How do you do on-page SEO?
We sort of did go through that with the...
So how do you do on-page SEO? Maybe you could just really quickly just point some of the key things out, right?
Okay, yeah. So by the way, on-page, off-page, different, all right? So let me establish that first, all right? So when you're talking about on-page SEO, it's basically SEO that you are that's localized purely on your website, right? So we kind of went through bits and pieces the past 50 minutes.
Well, okay, don't know how long
was it. Was it 50 minutes? Anyway, so one of the on-page SEO you could do, which we just talked about, were the HTML.
The HTML, yeah.
Right?
The tags,
so the tags.
Right, the tags.
The other thing, keywords.
The keywords.
Right?
Yep. Internal linking, maybe that's one of it. So you link to each of your own other content as well. So
yes.
That's one good way.
Yeah. So keeping traffic localized in your website, right? So you could be reading one blog post, but then before you have a CTA like, hey, check out this other blog post,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's another point of doing SEO.
And the next one would be what else? Right, the speed of the site as well. So yeah, if your site actually is really slow, that would be very tough. So site speed, that's one very crucial thing.
Yeah, site speed, even mobile friendliness, right? You'd be very surprised. Although let's say like, oh yeah, you know what? My traffic doesn't come in from mobile users. Doesn't matter. Google couldn't care less, right? If you're mobile friendly, that means when your website loads, right, on your phone, that is actually catered. Like the code is also catered to your phone's browser, right? So that is also pretty much a huge jump as well in SEO.
I think we kind of wrapped that.
Yeah. Those are the core. I would say.
Those are the core stuff.
Yeah.
There are a lot more things. It can get really technical, but those are the key core things.
That they're between 200 to 500. In case some of you guys might want to know. So.
There is one more question. Is SEO all about traffic and can be indexed by Google? And is it just about inserting keywords in Google Ads and just choose them for your content? I think we kind of answered that. So let's just rephrase that question, right? What is SEO about? So is SEO about traffic and can it be indexed by Google? Yes. Basically, we call it search engine optimization. Basically, Google and all the search engine, what they want to do is that they try to give value back to the people. So they pay attention to what people are looking for, the keywords that people are looking for, and then obviously they would have this whole list of articles and websites, and they look through them and say that, hey, these are the bunch of websites that will give value to this keyword. That's how they show it, right?
Think about indexing. Actually, that's one probably important part we didn't cover yet.
Okay.
So how do we index certain pages in your website, right? We do that through Google Search Console.
Yeah.
So through Google Search Console, there's two ways of getting your website indexed. Either the Google crawler just happens to stumble upon your website, right? It's just like, oh, hey, you know what? Here's a website. In case that never happens, right? Then you go onto Google Search Console and you basically command, right? You instruct the Google crawler to come your way, right? To go and index that URL. So that's the other way of indexing your URL. So in some cases, if your article or basically a specific page, right, within your website is not getting ranked, although you have all the best practices, that's probably because the Google crawler hasn't basically stumbled across your website yet. Yeah. So the other way to do it is basically you're calling a taxi, right? Yeah. So you go into Google Search Console, you put in your URL there, you press index, and then you just wait for it.
Yes. Because there are a lot of websites, around the world, and it's going to take time for, the crawlers to go from one place to another place. So they don't crawl a website every single day. So that's one thing that you guys need to keep in mind. So just like what Robin said, you need to probably go to your Google Search Console and tell the crawler or tell Google like, hey, index my page. I don't know if you're going to be dropping by anytime soon, but we can index it right now. And the second part of the question, do you use the same keywords for your Google Ads and your content? I think that's the second part of it.
Yes. Not 100% though, right? Yeah. So the answer to that is yes, but only the main keywords. There's like, if I'm going to be spending money, let's say on Google Ads, right? I want to be ranked for a very objective keyword, right? So an objective keyword, right, using the whole handphone example, is iPhone 10. Yeah. Then that's it, all right? But then in my SEO, when I'm doing keywords for SEO, I will then start using basically niche keywords or long tail phrases to go along. So it's not just iPhone 10, it's iPhone 10 specifications compared to Huawei P30. It's basically just really long-winded, right? So that's basically the difference, right? Yeah. But otherwise, principally, right, I would use the same, if not similar.
Yeah. So I think if you guys go to Uber Suggest, just when you just type in the keywords that you kind of want to research on, they give you a bunch of things, right? And they will tell you, what is the CPC price, what is the competition.
Yes.
Sometimes SEO might take some time for it to appear, and sometimes you just go like, I can't wait for it, so which is why I would rather pay for it, right? You can go to Uber Suggest and just check it out, right? Check it out if those keywords, if you could afford those keywords, if you think you can, then you can go try out and use those keywords, not just for your content, but use those keywords for Google Ads for paid purposes.
Yeah. And don't forget, right? Even though you're doing Google Ads,
Yep.
right? And you have your ad that shows up there and people are clicking on your ad for that keyword, right? Although you are paying for it, it actually does add SEO value too, all right?
Because they're going to
because your website is generating traffic, right? So your website isn't going to know the difference if it's coming through a paid channel or a free channel. It's not going to know. To your website, traffic is traffic, right? So it's always good to basically keep those two things in mind.
Okay, I think that's about it. I don't see any more questions on Instagram or Facebook. Really, really happy to have all of you guys with us. Whatever we are doing right now, we would definitely be sharing it across our different platforms as well. You can always rewatch this video. So Robin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you so much. If you guys have any more questions relating to digital marketing or entrepreneurship, feel free to drop by Next Academy's Instagram, as well as Next Academy's page on Facebook, and feel free to ask questions. We always do polling on what you guys want to know about, what you guys want to find out more, and we will answer those questions for you guys. All right, guys, thank you so much. Say bye to both sides.
Bye.
Say bye Facebook and bye Instagram, guys. Bye.